Hello and welcome to a special edition of To The Point. I am with former External Affairs Minister Yashwant Sinha, who recently led a delegation of concerned citizens to Srinagar and met with a cross-section of people, including businessmen, traders, public intellectuals, literateurs, and Kashmiri separatist leaders. Accompanying him were former Chief Election Commissioner of India, Wajat Habibullah, retired Air Vice Marshal Kapil Kak, the Executive Director of Centre for Dialogue and Reconciliation, Sushobha Barve, and I was also lucky enough to be part of this group. I'm going to discuss with Mr. Sinha about what he saw in Kashmir and what he learned from the Kashmiri people. Welcome to this conversation, Mr. Sinha. What was the purpose of this visit and how did it come about suddenly?
A group of concerned citizens met in Delhi to discuss the Kashmir situation. There were people from Jammu and Kashmir also in that meeting, and it was in that meeting that it was decided that a group of the people present should visit the valley, should visit Srinagar and see for themselves what the situation was. And one sentence which was mentioned in that meeting will always stick in my memory. Somebody pointed out that it used to be protest, then it turned into anger, and now it is turned into hatred. So the situation was considered to be very grim, and that was the reason why we decided to visit the valley.
But how is it that the separatist leaders who didn't open their doors for several delegations in the past, including an all-party delegation, welcomed you with open arms? Did it help that the government disowned the group and so did the BJP?
Well, we ourselves said on our arrival in Srinagar that we were not representing anyone, any organization, any political party. We were there on our own, and that was something which was made very clear by us. Subsequently, this statement was made by the Government of India and the BJP. So it didn't deter from our task because we were not actually representing anyone, and we were there as concerned citizens in our individual capacity. Why did the Hurriyat leaders open their doors for us? I can't really say. Maybe they are also getting tired of isolation, I don't know. But we had gone determined to Srinagar that we'll talk to everyone who is willing to talk to us. And since they were willing to receive us, we met them also.
What were the most significant things that you learned from this visit? Something that you didn't know earlier?
The extent of grief, the extent of sorrow, the complete disappointment at lost opportunities and broken promises, etc. I mean, there is a level of disappointment and frustration in the valley which I had never seen on my earlier visits to Jammu and Kashmir and Srinagar in particular.
But wasn't there a yearning for the Vajpayee years?
Of course there was. I mean, this was the ray of hope, because in all our discussions, the narrative appeared to be the same. And everyone was talking about the same things. Whether we agreed with them or disagreed with them was another matter. But all of them remembered the Vajpayee period. All of them said that the Vajpayee line should be followed in Jammu and Kashmir, and that is what is going to bring peace.
Now let's talk about the immediate causes of anger and grief. What are the proximate reasons for the kind of suffering that Kashmir is facing today?
Well, one thing which was mentioned to us and which surprised me most certainly was that even before the killing of Bhushan Wani, there was apprehension that something bad was going to happen, something terrible was going to happen. And Bhushan Wani's killing provided that immediate trigger. And it's almost 4 months now. There have been protests in the streets all over the place. And I think that was the trigger which has set off the present agitation or whatever you call it. And as I said, there is great degree of feeling of distance from the rest of the country.
See, one of the things I noticed, and I'm sure you did too, that the Kashmiris complain most about is that the security forces have used pellet guns. And they kept saying that why you didn't use the pellet guns in the Jat agitation in Haryana, which led to crores of loss of property, gang rapes. You did not use the pellet guns in the Kaveri protests where 100 buses were burnt in a day. You didn't use it in the Patel agitation in Gujarat. In fact, pellet guns have not been used anywhere in India. So are the Kashmiris right in getting upset about the pellet guns, saying that why only in Kashmir?
Pellet guns has become a huge emotive issue in the valley especially. And when you have this feeling that you are neglected, you are abandoned, nobody cares for you, then everything becomes an issue. Now, the security forces are probably using pellet guns because they don't want to really kill people. But it has become a huge emotive issue.
Because it's blinding people.
It's blinding people. Now, that was something, I don't know whether it was factored in by the security forces, that when the pellet gun will be fired, it will cause hurt and injury even in the eye. And the blinding of young children has become a huge issue in the valley.
Another issue that people kept raising was that the Public Safety Act is being misused. Now, this PSA was brought in by Sheikh Abdullah apparently to tackle timber smugglers. It allows you to keep somebody confined for a year or more and not bring him before a magistrate. So they're saying it's become a revolving door process for arresting people indefinitely. You get out through one door and from the next door you get another charge under PSA from another police station. And a lot of children have also been arrested under PSA. Is that not illegal?
This issue was raised that the Juvenile Delinquency Act was in operation, but no arrangements were in place. And so when children have to be detained, they'll be detained under PSA and they'll be sent to ordinary jails, which is a very bad thing. Some people even considered it illegal to detain children like this. And any draconian legislation which does not provide for judicial review is something which will be considered bad in a democracy. So PSA in Jammu and Kashmir has become another symbol of repression of the Kashmiri people.
But let's talk about the children particularly, because if these children are kept in jails with adult criminals, hardened criminals, what impact are those criminals going to have on these young impressionable minds? So you have Juvenile Justice Act, but you don't have juvenile homes, you don't have bostals. Don't you think there's a need to create a separate facility? It's unfortunate children are getting arrested, but if they do get arrested, then they should be kept separately.
Absolutely, absolutely. Even if they don't have established children's homes, they could rent some property or do something so that the children are kept separately. And that will be a huge relief to the children, because if they are in the jails with hardened criminals, the likelihood is that they will come out as criminals.
Now, there were also instances that people pointed out to us of security forces allegedly destroying transformers in remote rural areas. There have been a few cases of burning of standing crops. Now, do you think the security forces there are under a tremendous amount of pressure and that leads to this kind of activity, or do you think it's a deliberate act of punishing people collectively?
Very difficult to say, Bharat, because we did not specifically inquire into this. These complaints were made to us and we have brought it to the notice of the Chief Minister and the Governor. But instances have taken place. And the problem is that in a given situation, even the security forces tend to react with anger. And this is what the result is. Why should transformers which supply electricity be destroyed? Doesn't make any sense, but there are instances of that also.
Now, to what extent do you think whatever is happening in Kashmir is the result of state policy? I'm talking of the immediate agitation and how it has been dealt with in the last 4 months. Or do you think these are results of local circumstances and local reaction of security forces to the situation there?
No, I think it is the expression of a long-term disappointment amongst the people of Jammu and Kashmir about the non-resolution of the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. 70 years seem to have gone by and we have not been able to resolve the issue. And there is a feeling that, decade after decade is being lost and nothing is happening. It is this basic reason which is causing all this turmoil from time to time. I mean, let's not forget that there was an agitation of a similar kind in 2008, then again in 2010, today in 2016. This time it is different for various reasons.
But one of the things I found different this time, and I don't know whether you also thought it was remarkable, that the Kashmir Chamber of Commerce and Industry or the Kashmir Economic Alliance of traders and commercial establishments, they all said that this time around they're not bothered about profit or loss, that they don't mind indefinite bandhs and hartals. They want all killings to be stopped, all pellet firings to be stopped, and they want the Kashmir issue addressed. Now, did that surprise you, that businessmen are saying we are not bothered about profit and loss?
It did, because Chambers of Commerce, the Kashmir Economic Alliance, which is a very large alliance of people engaged in economic activities, then hoteliers and houseboat owners and tour operators, they all met us and they all had the same refrain, that we were not bothered about loss of business or profits or anything of that kind. They all emphasized on us the need for resolving the long-standing Jammu and Kashmir issue. And to me, it was a surprise, because whenever I met such bodies and organizations, they have always talked about business. This was the first occasion when they did not talk about business, they talked about a political problem.
They also talked of the safety of Kashmiri businessmen who are spread all over the country today, and the safety of Kashmiri students. Isn't that a legitimate concern?
It is. It is a legitimate concern. And they also pointed out, as you will recall, that some TV channels in India were specializing in demonizing the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and it was perhaps having an impact on people from especially the valley living outside. And there are a very large number of students from the valley, there are a very large number of other people from the valley who are doing business, and there have been instances where they have been attacked, they have been ill-treated, and this is causing, as I said, a larger than life problem in the valley.
But across the board, including from government officials, we heard that Kashmir policy in India seems to be run by the media, and that something needs to be done to sensitize the media. Nobody talked of controlling the media, but sensitizing the media about the Kashmiri people and the Kashmir situation. Now, do you think that it's possible to do that? Can it be done? Or in a free democracy, it can't be done?
I would suggest self-correction. The media must correct itself, because I have been watching these programs, especially after my return from Srinagar, and I find that they are so ill-informed and they come to their own conclusions. And even about our visit, many people were misrepresenting the facts. So it is all based on wrong conclusions, and they are being aired, advertised all over the country, and that is creating a huge problem for the people back in the valley.
Okay, let's talk about your meetings with the Kashmiri separatist leaders. After talking to them, what do you think were their long-term concerns? And do you think they felt that the ground was slipping from under their feet and the situation was moving towards anarchy, decentralized leadership with nobody knowing who the 14 or 15-year-old is who controls a particular street?
But this is something we heard not only from the separatists, but from everyone, including from the people we met from the government. The point is that the street is being controlled by the youth, and therefore everyone is becoming irrelevant in the valley today, including the separatists. And the writ will not run if there was any deviation from what the street wants. And these are situations which are very difficult to handle because there is no defined leadership with whom anybody can talk. And this is how the current agitation in the valley is different from the other earlier agitations. You at least knew who to talk to. This time you don't.
But what did the separatist leaders say about addressing the long-term issue of Jammu and
They
Kashmir?
have their narrative, and you recall that at times we pointed out that there could be a counter narrative, but the whole point which emerged from not only talking with them but talking with everybody is that there must be a dialogue to resolve these issues.
How can there be a dialogue when the main discourse in India is that everything that has happened from Bhushan Wani's death onwards is being engineered by Pakistan? Do you believe that narrative, or do you, is every Kashmiri protester a pawn in the hands of Pakistan, or do you think some people are genuinely agitated and Pakistan is taking advantage of that situation?
No, Pakistan has always fished in troubled waters from 1947 onwards. And if they are fishing in troubled waters today, one will not be surprised at all. But the point is that these are our people. Why have we lost control over them? Why have we failed to reach an understanding with them? If Jammu and Kashmir is our atut ang, then we must be able to relate to the people. Why is this gap, this huge chasm between them and us being created, and how? And if any third country is taking advantage of it, it's too bad.
What do you think the separatist leaders meant? Because some of them said very passionately that India has always addressed our stomachs and not our hearts and minds. That India has not addressed the psycho-historical aspect of the wounded soul of Kashmir. What do you think they meant?
No, there is a point in what they are saying, because we have spent a lot of money looking after the people of Jammu and Kashmir. I know it because I was also in the finance ministry. But we probably have not related to them emotionally. And the need of the hour is to be able to understand the people of Jammu and Kashmir and relate to them as much emotionally as possible and reach out to their hearts. I mean, the battle, Bharat, in especially Kashmir today, is a battle for the minds and souls of the people. And we have to take it in that light.
Okay, so what is it to, that's a long-term perspective given. What is it that can be done immediately to ease the situation? What should the state government do? Can it take certain steps which shows certain goodwill and which tries to win the hearts and minds of the people?
We looked at the problem in two separate categories, though both are quite umbilically related to each other. The first was the current agitation, and we all felt that reopening of the schools was very essential. Nobody had the right to destroy the future of the children, and therefore with everyone we met, including the separatists and including all the organizations and individuals, we pleaded for the reopening of the schools. And the separatists put some conditions. We have conveyed those conditions to the Chief Minister. I would imagine that she is not averse to some of them. And if that happens, irrespective of whether they support them or don't support them, I think a stage has been reached where unilaterally we should take some steps so that people are convinced that we are genuine in our sincerity to reopen the schools.
So what should the state government be doing?
The state government should, for instance, release the students who have been jailed, especially those who are not hardened criminals and are there for the first time. If this one step is taken, it will go a long way in restoring the credibility of the move that we want to make regarding the reopening of the schools.
But clearly there are some people who don't want schools reopened, otherwise why would they be setting fire to schools?
Quite clearly. I mean, there will be people who would promote the current agitation, would not like the current agitation. But your question was, what can we do, or the state can do, in order to reopen the schools? And I suppose releasing the children who have been arrested for the first time will be a major step.
And creating a secure environment so that they can go to school.
Absolutely.
That's the state's responsibility.
Yes.
And what should the central government should be doing?
Well, the central government has a lot to do. The first, as you pointed out, was the use of pellet guns. They must come to some conclusion, and the sooner this is stopped, the better it will be for all concerned. The second is to take some initiative which will deal with the long-term issue of Jammu and Kashmir. And we must engage everyone in a dialogue. I may point out to you that even in the agenda of alliance of the BJP and PDP, it's very clearly mentioned that Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee as Prime Minister had started a dialogue with all concerned, including the Hurriyat, and that the government which is there in Jammu and Kashmir today will also have a dialogue with all stakeholders. So there is absolutely nothing wrong in engaging everyone in a dialogue.
But meanwhile, shouldn't, for example, the government take smaller steps also, like one is banning the pellet guns. Secondly, training security personnel who are deployed there. We heard that people are sort of suddenly taken from, say, Bihar and posted in Srinagar. Without sensitizing them about what kind of society they are going in, what are the religious sensitivities of people there, how to behave with the elders, how to behave with women, what to say, how to talk. So this kind of sensitization is just not there. Shouldn't the government begin by doing this? Because a lot of these things seem to be accidents because of lack of communication, because of lack of understanding the local culture.
You will recollect that this came from a very high functionary in a very responsible position in government. And there's certainly a case for sensitization, for reorienting the people who are going to Jammu and Kashmir, people in the forces, so that they understand. They are not suddenly pitchforked into a situation which they don't understand, they don't know how to deal with it.
And what would be your appeal to the Kashmiri youngsters and the Kashmiri separatist leaders? I mean, after all, as Foreign Minister, you have dealt with Kashmir issue in great detail earlier. So you've seen how it has evolved. Today, if you had to make an appeal to them, what would you say to them?
My appeal to them will be that let normalcy be restored as quickly as possible. They should, there is no point in using the same narrative over and over again. When we sit down for dialogue, we'll discuss all those issues, but normalcy must be restored, and the first step for the restoration of normalcy should be the reopening of the schools and putting a stop to the destruction of school buildings.
And what would be your appeal to Government of India? I mean, clearly there also has to be accountability for excessive use of force.
My appeal to Government of India and to all concerned will be not to take Jammu and Kashmir, every step that we take, as victory or defeat. I think it's very important. It's such a sensitive issue at a sensitive, delicate time in our history that looking at it from any short-term point of view or as victory and defeat will itself be defeatist. So we should give what is their due, we should demand what is our due, and let there be a dialogue in the best possible atmosphere.
My last question to you, Mr. Sinha, is what are the mistakes that New Delhi should avoid in dealing with Kashmir? You've already said that not everything should be seen as victory and defeat, but in terms of its approach to Kashmir, what are the pitfalls that Government of India must avoid?
First of all, it is that we must all Indians, not merely the government, we must realize that we are dealing with our people. I mean, after all, the people of Jammu and Kashmir, each one of them, they are our people, they are our citizens, and therefore we should deal with them like we'll deal with citizens in any part of the country. And there is no reason why we should consider them to be separate, to be away from us, and deal with them as if we are dealing with a stranger. That is most important.
In your capacity as a concerned citizen, are you going to continue this process? Are you going to visit Kashmir again and meet people again?
I would like to. And I would very much want to see that we get out of the current situation, that we take steps for the resolution of the longer term issues, and that Kashmir becomes a partner in our peace, prosperity, goodwill, and the whole story that is India today.
Thank you, Mr. Sinha. That's all we have for you today. We'll be back again next week with another personality. Until then, goodbye.